Hey guys, what's up? This is Freenachos for ownerballs.com. In this very first video that I'm making in a very long time, I want to present you guys my new series here on Run Advance called From Low Stakes to High Stakes. I'll first briefly introduce myself, then I'll tell you a little bit about this series, why I'm making it, and why it's going to be valuable for you guys to watch. And then we're going to dive right into the topic of today, which is defending versus c-bets. I'll show you a framework for identifying which lines are going to be the best bang for buck to study. We're going to break down the incentives for the exact node that we're going to be studying today, which is going to be 3-bet pot in position pivot caller. So we're going to open, face a 3-bet by the small blind or the big blind, and we call in position, and then we face a c-bet on the flop. And then I'll show you guys how I study this myself. So first we break down the incentives, which basically means we're going to try and see if we can get some data on where the pool might be imbalanced, and then which kind of direction that makes us want to go into when we are facing a c-bet. And then the second step is going to be making sure that we understand the equilibrium thresholds very well, and we can do that by studying flashcards. And those flashcards I will be releasing, and there's about 180 flashcards that I will be releasing, I think a little bit more even, and there will be some additional content that I'll be releasing. But first, let me reintroduce myself. So I was a aspiring poker player in 2007, 2008. I had dropped out of high school, and I was sure that I was going to be a professional poker player. It was basically everything that I thought about and did for multiple years, but I failed miserably. I ended up quitting in early 2010s, went back to school, became a teacher, and then when I was teaching full-time and had sort of fixed all of the issues that I had before that, I thought I need a hobby again. And so I started playing poker again, started a blog on Run Advance, and the rest is history, as they say. I managed to move up from 5NL to 1020, so 2000 NL, which is what I'm playing today. First, we're going to start today with 3-bet pot in position pivot caller defending versus c-bets. So we'll start here. Like, this is exactly what I mean, right? One of the questions that I had at some point was, what is the EV that flows to each defending node? And you can see I've put some, I think there's some betting ones. Yeah, so there's some polarization ones in here as well. The bet, second c-bet and then barrel, question mark, those are going to be in there. But you can see everything is quantified. So we can study 3-bet pot out of position pivot caller. So still in 3-bet pot, we still face a c-bet, but now we're out of position. And then it is going to be significantly less valuable for every hour studied, because there's just not enough EV that flows through this. How is this made? I made it by taking the sample in a large database. So how often did this spot occur? I guessed the average pot size based on GTO Wizard solutions. So you're never going to be, you could probably do a bit more exact than I did, but this list is a reasonable approximation. And then the goal, as always, is not to get a perfect list, right? I'm not trying to win lists making prizes here. I want to get an understanding, do I want to go for 3-bet pot in position pivot caller, defending versus bet, or do I want to go for 3-bet pot out of position pivot caller, defending versus bet? That is the only question that I have. And this will likely tell me that 3-bet pot in position pivot caller versus bet, defend versus bet, 38K, let's say 38.5. And this is actually versus bet 33. So we have 3-bet pot out of position pivot caller, defend versus bets. And here we are at 16.7K. So like more than 20K difference. Maybe the difference is actually smaller. Maybe it's larger. Who knows? But quite likely the defend versus bet is a very high volume node and one of the more important nodes of the game tree. And that is kind of what I wanted to get here. So the goal is not to be very precise. The goal is not to get it exactly right with these things, but to create a framework that shows you the direction in which you need to be heading towards. Right. So that's the importance, right? Time is limited. Efficiency is important. Make a list. And now you've got the list, but and then start with the highest priority one. Right. So here we are going to start breaking down the incentives. We know that the pool overfolds versus the imposition raise. There's about a 5% point overfolds. You can look at different pools and there will be slight differences, but say 5% point overfold. Then what does that mean for our defending? We take a random texture, king 8 deuce, small blind versus big blind. I will show you the exact process of how I did this and everything in a separate video that will be in the content that will be released among this video. But for now, I just wanted to show you the incentives because I could see some guys might be interested in that, others might not. So on the left, you see the equilibrium sim. On king 8 deuce, you're not going to go with too many raises versus small sizing. The small sizing is going to be used very often for the small blind. And you're going to defend 60% of the time. So now let's say that there's a 5% point overfold. Then suddenly, a lot of those bottom of the range type hands that need to be folding now might be able to start raising. So for instance, you can see ace jack is now defending almost pure and there's some raising going on. And overall the raising gets in there more often. So do we need to be raising exactly 17.9% on this texture? Who knows? I'm sure as hell I'm not going to tell you that you should be matching this frequency. What I am saying is this is what it was, this is what it now is, shows you the direction in which you need to be heading to when you're studying the equilibrium solutions. Next one. Pool underutilizes second barrels. Just a minor thing, but if they are not second barreling often enough, then your backdoor type defense on the flop are going to go up in value because you're going to be able to see more cards more often. And so you get to realize equity more. You might be able to deny some more equity by your opponents. You can see pool is check folding too often after c-betting the flop and then checking the turn. Pool doesn't check raise often enough after c-betting the flop and then checking the turn. The pool overfolds when they c-bet the flop. They don't check fold, but they check call a small bet and then they check fold the river too often. The pool overfolds in bet check folds, which means they're c-betting the flop, we call one position, they check the turn, we check back, they check the river, and then we bet. They're folding too often there. And the pool doesn't bet check bet often enough. Again, minor thing here. The data that used here is the Russian cash 200 data. So pick a slightly different pool, and like if you pick something like PokerStars 500 plus, then the differences are going to be a bit smaller, but it should give you a rough idea of the incentives. Now, what does that mean? Again, I node-logged all of these incentives on turns and rivers, and then asked the solver, what would that mean for your flop defense? And you can see we were starting with that 16.18%. Folds, we are now at 13.92. So those future situations, like the fact that they don't second barrel often enough and basically don't put enough money into the pot and don't put you into indifference often enough in later streets, means that you are allowed to defend the flop slightly wider. So summary right now is incentives are laid out in a way where we can over defend the flop slightly versus small bets. All right, so if we go back here, right, then we can say, if you ask me like, is this correct? I would tell you, depends, right? Like I would bet a lot of money that if we were to able to figure out what we should be doing exactly for the pool, that the folding frequency wouldn't be 13.92. It might be more, it might be less. Same thing goes for these ones. Like I'm pretty sure it's not 9.03, the exact folding frequency that we should have versus the pool. If you'd ask me how much money would you bet that the direction in which you're going to be heading is over defending, then I would say I would bet about like pretty much all the money. I better bet all the money that I have based on the incentives here. I think I could make a very good case for that. So every model is wrong. Some are useful. Like we can go into this and we can say, this is not correct. We can go into the equilibrium model and we can say, this is not correct. The pool doesn't play this way. The pool has a different 3-betting range. The pool might not bet one sizing on the flop. They might bet multiple sizes on the flop. They might be range betting on the flop. And so every model that you're going to be looking at is going to be wrong. And it's the best it can do is give you a sense of what you should be doing in game, but you'd always try to keep using your mind. So same thing goes for the exploit models here. Like they're going to be wrong, but they show you the direction in which you need to be heading to. It might very well be that you need to raise less. It might very well be that you need to raise more. But the goal is not to find the exact raising frequency. The goal is to try to gain an understanding of where we need to be heading into. And then when we're in game and we're like, oh, I could be raising his hand, I could be folding, could be calling, not entirely sure. Like it seems like all 3 options might be reasonable with my hand. And that is definitely something that might happen from time to time. Then we might say, okay, well, I'm not going to fold because I know the direction in which I need to be heading is go away from folding. Extrapolation is usually right, but not valuable, and predictions of deviation from trends are potentially profitable, but rarely right. So exploitative SIMs, equilibrium model is usually right, but not valuable, and predictions of deviations from the equilibrium model are potentially profitable, but rarely right. And this is very true, I think. So if you are playing versus someone is range betting into you, then you could literally come up with a model that is very close to being a perfect solution against that. But there might be other things that he might be doing wrong that aren't easily caught in a model like that. So for instance, he might not be second barreling as often as a solver would after range betting. He might not be check raising enough on the turn. And getting an idea for those things is going to be very hard, and you're never going to get it exactly right. But those are the things that make poker very profitable. If we're able to understand, like these are the key concepts, this is what a solver would do given these constraints, and we understand the direction in which the solver would be heading towards, then that is where the money is. The money is not by playing exactly what the solver is saying you should be playing in an equilibrium model. If everyone would be doing that, everyone would be losing money because the side would be winning rake. You need to make sure that you force your opponent to make a mistake. That is basically the thing. And that is one of the reasons why like comment sections are usually relatively polar in the reactions, because if I think a call is profitable, even though it's very far off from what the solver would be doing, I'd make the call. Whereas people will react quite extreme to that. Some will like that and will resonate with that approach. Others will just flame you to the ground. And either way is fine with me, but it is something to be aware of. I remember reading a blog post in our Not Just Poker Discord server where Gary Chappelle said he was going to quit making content because, well, he's doing very well in playing poker and he doesn't really need to be making content. He doesn't have a course to sell. He doesn't really want to do coaching, so he didn't really need it. That's one. And two, he said it's making content forced him to play a bit more balanced because he would get negative responses and he wouldn't want to give away his like very extreme thoughts in like a random stream or something like that. So that is kind of what this quote is saying. This is Howard Marks. He's an investor and he's relating to the world of investing. But I think in poker, which is in a sense it's investing too, sometimes you got to do very extreme things. And rarely you're going to be able to prove that those extreme things are going to be right. Or at least you got to go head into an extreme direction, and very rarely you're going to be able to prove that those things are right. All right, summary. Follow the direction. Over-defend slightly versus small c-bets. Now there's a lot more incentives, a bunch of which will I lay out in the course. Pretty much every incentive that there is in the pool, and then yeah, like all the data and everything will be presented to you guys in there. But in this case, for facing a small c-bet, we want to over-defend slightly. All right, so what we're going to do now is, given these incentives, we're going to go and train in the with the Enki deck that I've created, which has again 180 flashcards. And then I'll show you how to apply these incentives to the study method of deliberate practice. All right, so here we are with flashcards. 3.1 I'll be releasing, the rest is part of the CFP. 2.1 I'll be releasing, and so there's going to be defending versus small bets, defending versus larger bets, versus which if you're playing low stakes you might need to overfold, because the low stakes pool is playing a bit to face up with their sizings. If they flop a set or an overpair, they're a bit more likely to go and put it in the bet 75. They might not find all the air that they need to be finding. So keep that in mind. There is about 180 flashcards in here. And I want to focus today on, let's say, one that I find relatively tough myself. So I will go for defending versus half pot MP versus small blind big blind. This would not be the first one that you'd want to start with. Like, probably first one is this one. Again, if you make a list with the line EV for each one, then probably defending versus small blind, pot versus big blind, vast majority of the EV. But I want to make things a little bit hard on myself, so here we go. So here we have the deck. Nice. All right, half pots. Ace queen high on 9-7-5. Like I said, I made it relatively tough. I worked a lot of hours on these decks. I picked the ones that were really hard to get. This is an interesting one. So a couple of things that I think are important here. I think we want to defend this before ace-10 of hearts. If you face larger sizes, let's say half pot, especially 3/4 pot, then you're going to generally favor like high card hands a bit more. Or maybe ace-10 is defending and this is not, like it could be club, but definitely this before a king-10. I would guess. So I think I'm just going to lean towards calling here. We're going to have jack 10, queen 10 is probably going to be folding. Let's half fold. I think I'm going to call with ace queen, fold ace jack, fold ace 10, maybe ace 10 with hearts I would defend. Pocket pairs with a spade I would defend. And then the pocket pairs above the 10 I'm always calling. And like pocket eights, 7-8, 7-6, like pair plus gutter I'm defending. But yeah, close. Trending towards folding, okay. Tight formation, connected action, like there's a low frequency continuum. Keep in mind that king 10, I promise you I didn't do this right before the call. It's been a while since I've done this. I released these a couple months ago to the CFP, so keep in mind that king 10 is folding pure despite its additional backdoor equity. And let's see, ace queen, ace 10, as you can see here, is defending as well, as folding pure as well, it seems like. Interesting one. Okay, so I'm going to say, okay, not great. I need to study this again. Pocket deuces here I would fold, for example. This seems like very straightforward, but pure fold, we need a spade to continue. If you face a normal bet 25, then we actually get to call this. So that's like the, like we don't really face this sizing very often. And usually I make it a bit more complex, but just wanted to get this in there. Versus normal bet 25, we defend this. Okay, easy. Don't need to study that again. Tens here, I'm just going to call versus half pot. This might be indifferent already without the spade, I could imagine, because on a jack, villain is going to have king 10 sometimes, so we get cooler, but I think it's just strong enough to defend. 9-10 would be a better call, queen 10, obviously better call, queen jack, better call, 10-8 if you have that, maybe better call. 10-8 we don't have. So yeah, you can see it's already indifferent. This seems close. This is closure. It seems without the backdoor threshold we are mostly calling, but it's not a pure call by any means. Again, trying to draw the line basically in the sand. Okay, this is roughly the point, and these are the data points that are relevant. So if we know that this is indifferent, then we know that sevens is already pure folding. Ace-10 is ace-10 without a backdoor, pure folding, right? So yeah, I think this one is okay. Ace-queen, pure defending. We're going to defend this over 2 overcards with flush draws, because turning a queen or an ace has much more EV than turning a jack, for instance. Yeah, so nice pure continue. Sometimes can be turned into a bluff deny equity, realize equity type of raise. Not very important though. Keep in mind we favor strong high cards over lower ones with back to Freenachos. King Jack of diamonds is starting to fold sometimes for this sizing instance. For instance, you can see this is a pure call. King Jack of diamond is mixing, right? So that is basically the concept here that we want to get across. Favor higher cards more because turning a jack in this tight formation isn't as good, or isn't as good as turning a queen. That's the most simply put way. Like you want to favor the higher cards here because turning an over card pair, you want that to be a higher one because he is going to have jacks, queens, aces, kings himself. And now we have an option to outdraw kings, jacks, tens, for instance. And he's going to see bet king, jack, queen, jack on this texture, and we dominate those. So you want to dominate, you don't want to be dominated. That's the name of the game when you're facing larger sizing. Right, easy enough. Ace 10, we're going to defend ace 5, ace 4, 6, 5, 5, 4, pocket pairs, specifically the ones that match the suit on the board. We're going to defend like 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s are going to be indifferent, I think, and I would then defend the ones without a club. And then I think Jack 10, for instance, is pure folding, Queen Jack's pure folding, and 9 10 we're probably not going to have at any meaningful frequency. Ace Jack of spades I'm pure calling, Ace Queen I'm pure calling, Ace 10 I'm not entirely sure. King Queen I'm calling, King Jack I'm folding. So I think this is probably indifferent, but I'm not sure. Indifferent, so indifferent continue. As formations get tighter, out of positions range gets stronger, and this hand class that has a pure was a pure continue versus cutoff now versus MP is indifferent. Important point, like once you get in tighter formations, like basically threshold for defense goes up a little bit. Again, hands like king queen of diamonds, ace queen, club are pure defending, show the importance of dominating villain's betting's range. Okay. We can see that 7s is indifferent. These lower pairs are actually pure calling, so that's my bad. Close. I would probably fold this, although maybe we can have some raises here too. If I'm not sure, I want to have the ones with a spade and a heart in my hands, but we'll see. On the double Broadway texture, we got to be selective with our continues. All villains Broadways have 50% or more equity versus our hand. On Jack 8 6 two-tone, so Jack 10 6, Jack 8 6, we start having calls with deuce of spades, deuce of hearts in particular. And I mentioned this before, you want to match the suits that are on the board. The reason is quite simple. Like with the spade, you have some additional equity. That's great. Why do you want to have the heart then? Well, turning a, let's say you have the deuce of hearts in your hand, then turning the deuce of diamonds is higher EV than when you have the deuce of diamonds in your hand and you're turning the deuce of hearts, because that opens up another flush draw. And so sometimes, not very often, but sometimes your two pair, as we said, your turn set is going to get counterfeited. Or you call here, villain checks on the heart, you check back, rivers the deuce of hearts, completing the flush. You get the point. I'll see if there's like a clear example, otherwise on the end of the video I'll show you how this works. Here we need a spade, I imagine, although we need a spade. I'm just going to say, oh, it's very disconnected. No, we're going to need a spade in this formation. Pure fold, even by the spades and the non-clubs, so the non-hearts, so not the suit that is on the board. Start folding, matching both suits is always the highest EV. I'll see if I'll pull up a sim player to show you guys what this looks like. Here, pocket 10s on an ace 8, you shouldn't really be getting the sizing at any meaningful frequency. I think we're going to be pretty close to indifference already, because he's going to have a lot of ace X hands, and then he's going to probably sometimes bet kings, queens, although not for the sizing, probably, but yeah, I think we're going to be indifferent. We want to match the suits that are on the board. If we're in doubt, I think I would fold in again, still matching the suits on the board, but makes call and folds indifferent in equilibrium. Okay. The previous hand was actually not one where you want to match the suits that are on the board because it's a pair texture, and those are slightly different. But anyway, matching the suits that are on the board here, we have third pair. I'm just going to call. Like speedrunning this a little bit, but I think this is an indifferent in equilibrium. When in doubt, defend the pocket pair with the suits that match the board, as they can turn rainbow sets, which increases the EV slightly. So in other words, turning a set here on a 6 of hearts is slightly lower EV than turning a set on a 6 of clubs. Right? If we have the 6 of clubs in our hands, then we can't turn a rainbow set. We always are going to turn a set on a card that brings in a flush draw, which is going to lower the EV of your set slightly. It's not a massive difference, but sometimes it can be used as a randomizer in cases like this. So let's see, king queen here versus half pot. I would just fold on an ace-high texture. Oh no, I'm going to fold, yeah, on an ace-high texture. It's mostly folding, yeah. Although indifferent, we mostly fold. We generally need at least an overcard to be able to call versus half pot in this formation. We don't have an overcard here, so we need like some additional equity. Basically, is what we're saying here. A pair 7-8 type hands, flush draw. Maybe Jack 10. No, Jack 10 is also not calling without one. All right, so we're going to pull up this sim in a second here. But this is just going to be a call, I think. Matching the suits on the board is going to be a bonus. Pure continue. We'll look at deuces here. So I'm going to pull the sim up and then show you that concept of matching the suits that are on the board. All right, so real quick, half pot, which is not the best sizing, and then we can see the ones where the club are folded and the ones without the club are defended. And so matching the suits on the board is important. If we go for pocket fours, we can see the same thing. The EV for these ones is slightly higher for these ones. So we can see why that might be. One thing that we can do is we can go to the turn here and we will say check. And we will go and pick these. And then hijack EV. Then we can see on the deuce of diamonds here, your EV is going to be versus check, right? Specifically 65.55. On the deuce of clubs, it's going to be higher, 69.28. So almost 4 big blinds higher in EV. Now let's say we pick these two, so we have that club in our hands, then we only get to turn the sets on the lower EV turn cards. That's kind of the reason why the solver wants that. So again, the goal is to understand why the solver is doing certain things. Then we need to understand what are the incentives that the pool lays out in this exact scenario. In this case, for this half pot, not an awful lot. We just need to gain a very good understanding of the thresholds. And then it is simply about getting to work and making sure that all these flashcards are going to be drilled sufficiently, and then you will become a significantly better player. That is literally what it takes to go from low stakes to high stakes. And I did this somewhere, I can't remember if it was a Run Bones video, I think it was, but somewhere in a video I did research on a 1K player, and I compared that to a 25 and up player. And the idea was, like, let's see what EV mistakes they make versus facing c-bet. And then you can see the difference for 25 and up player, lots of EV mistakes. For the 1K player, very little EV mistakes. And the difference is the 1K player has gone through this type of training in some shape or form, maybe not exactly flashcards, maybe it's something different. But it's always going to be deliberate. It's a deliberate practice type of learning that will be most efficient. Or he's just spent a lot more time in a solver than I have in order to gain to a similar level. So understand the incentives, understand why the solver is doing certain things, gain an understanding of the thresholds, and then you'll become a significantly better player. There's no easy quick fix, but this is as easy and quick as it gets. Or queen jack on a pair texture, I'm leaning towards calling, to be honest, because it's one of the best high card hands that we can have, but I'm not entirely sure. Queen jack is indifferent again. On a rainbow pair texture like this, we're struggling to find enough calls with. And as this is one of our best high card hands, we're struggling to find enough. Okay, we're struggling to find enough hands to call with. And as this is one of our best high card hands, we still defend at some frequency. It took me some time to read that out loud. So we need to defend this sometimes in order to reach our defending threshold, because we're going to have a lot of these hands that are going to fold. That's basically what it says. Like if you have 10-9, 9-8, ace-5, you just have more of a fold in here, and you're allowed to fold a bit more, but you need to be careful. All right, so let's see. King jack, 2 overcards plus backdoor flush draw, but I think this is pretty close. I would lean towards folding this. I think king queen, although you're going to have a reasonable amount of lower cards as well. I think we're going to call. I think we're going to be at least indifferent here. Indifferent continue. Note that we generally prefer domination over villains rainbow, broadways over having flimsy backdoor equity. So you can see ace queen of clubs. You can't really see that, but I can. Is defending the vast majority of the time. So it will be indifferent with ace queen of clubs here. We'll defend ace queen of spades, ace queen of hearts, and then ace queen of clubs will be indifferent. So yeah, we already got that, I guess. Here we need a spade. I don't think we're going to continue. Even with spades, we fold pure. Nice. That's in there. Flimsy backdoor versus half pot. We are not defending. Pure fold in tight formations. We have to be aware of the continuing threshold. Back to flush up, but back to straight draw with overcards is not strong enough to continue. It's very simple. We don't need to think about that long. Very similar to the first hand. That was mid connected. This is low connected, and so both players are going to miss this a bit more often, and therefore I think this is a pure call. No, it is indifferent. Domination over backdoor equity. Ace. Oh, this is the first one that we did, actually, I think. Might have been the first one that we did. Yeah, I think we did this one. Okay. Cool. Nice. That was a good one. So this was the very first video of the very first installment of the low stakes to high stakes series. There will be at least 9 more videos that I'm going to be making over the next few months. I'll probably release one every month or something like that. Try to make sure that I take the time to make and gather enough high quality content in there. Watch out for the course that will be released relatively soon. I'm really excited for that. There will be a Discord server and everything, and I'll definitely continuously work on that course over the next year as well. So if you buy it right off the bat, there will be a lot of value in there. There's over 80 videos currently. They don't all the common nodes of the game tree. And definitely going to be very valuable, but over time I'll just release videos based on requests by students. If you're playing today, good luck at the tables, and talk to you guys soon. Bye.